Broadcasting from Silicon Valley, California, this is Conversations with Jennylyn.
You're watching Conversations with Jennylyn, and today my guest is not a stranger to my show. He's healing the world. And because he's healing the world, I want to continue to bring him back so he can remind you of the ways that he can help to protect you during this time where we have so many different bacteria, viruses, whatever that's plaguing the world. And Tom has evidence to show that his methods are actually curing people. So today, my guest, Tom Paladino, research inventor of scalar light and energy, is here to remind us how his technology and God inspired gift is healing people around the world from some diseases that we've been told cannot be cured, like herpes, like AIDS. And so today, Tom, welcome back to Conversations with Jennylyn.
Thank you, Jennylyn. It's a pleasure once again. Thank you for the invite.
Well, I want to make a change in the world for better. If there is a way to help people who are ill, who are struggling, who need information, whatever I can do to help another person, I have chosen this platform to do so because I don't own banks full of money to give them money. And so you are one of the people who has a similar philosophy and desire. And so I like providing the platform for you to bring information and whatever you want to share with people to help them. So today, what do you want your focus to be?
Sure. Well, I want to start off by saying I am working with a science. It's a new and emerging science. It's known as scalar energy. Some people might call that quantum energy or quantum healing. So what I'm doing is unprecedented. It's never been done before. And I've developed instruments. I developed scalar energy instruments that I believe can help us in this quantum realm. Now, I want to make this distinction. When I am working with people, I work with them around the world by way of an emailed photograph. I'm going to hold up my photograph just to accentuate this. People will send me photographs around the world of themselves or, say, animals, pets, and I work in the quantum realm. So I do not have anything to do with Western medicine. To the contrary, I'm working in a new science that's undefined. Let's call that quantum science. And in that science, I'm working with information. I'm working with intelligence. And I do everything by way of a photograph in the quantum realm. So to get to the crux of the matter, what does that mean? How can we help people? We can access a person or an animal, a pet, by their quantum realm, by their quantum dimension. And in so doing, with the instruments that I've developed, I'm able to send intelligence. And that intelligence will allow me to, say, balance the 7 meridians, the 7 chakras. That quantum intelligence will allow me to break down the molecular, the atomic bonds of, say, a toxin, or break down the atomic molecular bonds of a bacterium. So we're working in a new branch of physics, a new science, if you will, in which working through this paradigm, this quantum paradigm, we can balance the 7 chakras. We can eradicate bacteria, toxins, and in doing so, it is always a painless process. It's a simple process by way of light. I don't work with chemicals. So I access a person's, their quantum field, if you will. Everybody has a force field. And I do that with these special instruments that I've fabricated, that I've engineered. So scalar healing is in the quantum field. And it is so simple. It's so easy because it's simply a download. It's simply an impression of intelligence. Now, to put that in perspective, if you have a cell phone and you speak to somebody on a cell phone, you have a communication with that person by way of a signal. Obviously, a person is not inside your cell phone. what is inside the cell phone, so to speak, is a signal, is a modulated voice signal. Well, that's what I'm doing, but I'm doing that with a photograph. So I never work with anybody in person or any animal in a, say, laboratory. I work with photographs of people and animals, and in so doing, I can access their quantum field. Again, it's a new branch of science. What does that mean? We can improve spiritual, cognitive, emotional, and physical health in people as well as animals. So I see this as a new approach to wellness, all done, all effectuated by this paradigm, this quantum paradigm, in which I think I'm one of the leading exponents today in this new branch of physics.
And you said you started this with Nicola Tesla?
Yes,
Nicola Tesla?
I studied the master, Nikola Tesla, and as far as I'm concerned, he was the first man to develop scalar energy instruments. He was working on, to my understanding, instruments that would power the world with scalar energy. Now, Tesla is known for his advances in AC, alternating current electricity, which are incredible what he's done for the world. But Tesla also had a career in scalar energy, and it's that career that I'm trying to follow, and I'm trying to, in many ways, duplicate his results. Now, why is this so important? Why am I spending so much time and effort on this? Well, technology is a tool. Technology helps people. And if I can continue to develop this scalar energy technology, it's going to help everybody in the world. It will have an incredible impact on our lives for the better. So that's my point, that as a Christian, as a humanitarian, I want to work with this type of technology, scalar technology, to improve our welfare. I want to see that the people of the world benefit from this technology. That's why we're having this conversation.
So, Tom, it's so difficult for people to fathom, to understand, to see things that are happening in energy fields. I know this because I have had experience with it. And at first, when it happened to me, I too was one of the people that denied it and thought it was crazy because we live in a physical world where if we can't physically see a formula, an explanation, a manifestation, we discredit whatever we're being told because it sounds like what is commonly categorized as craziness. But there is a whole spiritual dimension in existence with our physical dimension that is playing a much larger part in our lives than this physical world. And so if you could just explain what quantum means, I think then it might be easier for people to understand how you can help them.
Okay, all right. Well, if I use the term quantum, it refers to a model. It refers to a dimension that is non-physical. So as you put it, a lot of people want to see a physical example. There is no physical example with quantum. It's intelligence or intuition. It's non-physical. And I wish I could show it to you, but it's invisible. So much like human thought or human emotion, that's really a scalar wave, if you will. That's a scalar emanation. Well, nobody's ever photographed, to my knowledge, human thinking or human emotion, but we know it's real. So this is the realm that I'm working in. I'm working in a paradigm that is non-physical, cannot be photographed. I don't think it can be measured, but it is indeed real. And it represents, amongst other things, human thought, human emotion. We could also say that scalar energy is a thought pattern that gives geometry to molecules, gives geometry to the elements of the periodic table. So to answer your question, I am working in a non-physical dimension. It's not an electron, it's not a proton, it has no mass. This non-physical dimension really is the Spirit of God. It's really the Holy Spirit in action. And many people can accept that by faith or by intuition, perhaps. Some, those who want empirical evidence, there is none. There is none, because we're comparing an apple to an orange. You cannot prove quantum energy by way of electromagnetic energy. The two are different.
So I'm bringing this to the table because I have been doing a lot of shows because I'm bold enough to go there. And I go there because I have experience with it, maybe not pleasant experience, but I have it nonetheless. And I think the things that resonate with us often comes from experience rather than something we read in a book or someone tells us. And I know as a student, as a child growing up, the lessons that have impacted my life the most were the ones that I had physical experiences with, where they put me in a lab and I worked on a project. I'm like, aha, I see it. And so people tell us to have faith, but we get so much information thrown at us that how do you have faith and how do you know when to be discerning and what you should take in and what you should shield yourself from?
Right.
And so I think a good example of this, and correct me if I'm wrong, is I've had a woman on my show a few times and she's coming on next week. She's known as a remote viewer. And she has helped the FBI and the police find missing bodies in different parts of the world from her home, from her living room in Canada, just by using that, right? And when I first aired her show, people were writing to me like, how does she do that? How does she do that? And I don't know how she does it. I don't have that gift. And most recently, I discovered a physicist from Stanford University who heard of this phenomena and was curious about it like I am, like, how does it work? You know, because it works. There's evidence to support.
Yes.
So it works because they find the people who are missing from their homes. And so now he has developed this ability. And he says we all have it. He's written many books. I've listened to all of his podcasts. And the reason I'm bringing it into this segment is because I see a parallel. And please correct me if I am wrong.
No, that's a fair parallel. You know, there are many things we don't understand. And I'm not asking people to simply just accept this off of face value. You know, I offer free sessions to everybody in the world. Experience the free session, and then you decide if this is of merit to you. But my statement is this: what Nikola Tesla discovered in this new and emerging science, scalar science, is very real. Tesla developed instruments that control scalar energy. I have developed instruments that control scalar energy, and I can attest to the fact that my instruments do not work with electromagnetic energy. They work with scalar energy. So there's two energies in the universe. Now, why is this so important? What's the point I'm trying to get at? It's new technology, and this new technology is going to help us tremendously. So I usually give this analogy. Look at the world with electricity and without electricity. And look what electricity has done for us and how by electrifying the world, we have so many inventions. We have so many pleasures, if you will, and so many opportunities that are afforded by this electrical grid. That's the technology that I'm looking at, okay? A technology to improve our lifestyle. So electricity was fine, but I am saying there's a better energy. There's a more efficient energy. And frankly, scalar energy does not pollute, and it's from the stars, so it's an infinite supply of energy. So the new grid, the new power grid will not be the electrical power grid. It will be a scalar energy power grid. So what am I getting at? I'm telling the audience in the future, many of you will live to see this day, that scalar energy will power the world and will do so at pennies on the dollar. Okay, it does not have any carbon footprint. It does not pollute whatsoever. There's no harm to it. There's no radioactivity associated with scalar energy. So this is the world that I am leading to. I'm a visionary. I see the future. And the future, the new technology of the future is scalar energy. And that's what I wanted to do by this podcast. I want to introduce the world to this new technology that has so much promise. That's my main focus today.
So, Tom, you know, when you're trying to prove something like this that exists in a quantum field or in the spiritual realm or non-physical realm, how can you assure somebody watching this segment that this works? Because you have the evidence to show the people who have trusted you have had favorable results. Do you
Right.
want to share some of those incidents with us?
Sure. I'll give you, for instance, we're working with an HIV/AIDS clinic in Delhi, India. Now, I live in the United States, and people from India will email photographs to me. Remember, I don't work with anybody in person. This is non-physical sessions. So when somebody will send a photograph, an emailed photograph, I simply place their photograph in this quantum field, in this scalar energy instrument. And working through their photograph, I can make a download of energy, if you will. I can administer scalar energy to a photograph. And on the photograph, I can detect the HIV virus and break apart the HIV virus. Now, I'm doing this by way of photographic representation. So a photograph of a person, if a person has HIV, that HIV virus is found on the photograph, and my instrument will break down the molecular structure of HIV found on the photograph. So that is one method that we can prove that we can access the scalar energy force field. Now, invariably, many of these people in India who were infected with HIV, they'll have a follow-up test. And that test will prove that they no longer have any HIV, that there is no viral load. Now, keep in mind, I've never met these people, and I've only worked with their photograph, with their energy paradigm. But I'm trying to associate the fact that by working with my laboratory, inside my laboratory, just with the photograph, if I can influence the paradigm, the quantum paradigm on a photograph, and that people have to, around the world, throughout the world, or perhaps as far away as India, that they can experience a similar download in their quantum field, that there might be an association between my quantum field and their quantum field. Now, remember, I'm not working with a person physically. I am only working in their quantum field. So to put this in a summary, working with a person's photograph, no matter where they're located in the world, I can access that person's quantum field, their force field. Let's call it a force field. And I can download information into their force field that does indeed influence that person, that influences their force field, no matter where they're located in the world. But keep in mind, I don't work with physical reality. I don't work with physical people or physical animals. I only work with their force field. And that's the key to my work. There is no physical reality. It's just an information system. So when we say quantum energy or force field or non-physical reality, we're working specifically with scalar energy that is not electricity, it's not magnetism, and I simply access the force field of people around the world.
So, Tom, for somebody watching this who thinks in terms of, for example, a doctor or somebody who believes that the only things that are possible are what they've researched, you were talking about taking a person's photograph and physically curing an ailment that is possibly going to take their life if they're not treated correctly. How can you explain to somebody who has that question how the light can actually go into a person's field and cure something as life-threatening as AIDS or whatever it is you're curing?
Okay, so my specialty is I've developed an instrument that works with microbes, germs, viruses, bacteria, and fungi. And on account of the fact that my instrument only works in a non-physical dimension, I can only explain the outcome in a non-physical dimension. So what I've discovered is my instrument will break down the intelligence that holds together a virus. Every virus, including the HIV virus, is held together by intelligence. So I don't physically act upon the virus with a chemical or a drug or anything. I act upon the, if you will, the force field of the virus, which is non-physical. It's a different way of thinking because it's a different branch of physics. So to prove what I'm doing, I can only prove that with a scalar energy instrument. I cannot prove what I'm doing in reference to Western thought. In other words, Western medicine or Newtonian physics cannot prove my work and vice versa, because they're both different. One's an apple and one's an orange. So my statement to the audience is this: with my instrument working in the scalar energy paradigm, I only work in the scalar energy model and the scalar energy dimension. I can only affect an outcome in the scalar energy dimension. And in the scalar energy dimension, I can break down the molecular bonds of a virus, including the HIV virus. I do that all the time. But I cannot prove that definitively that it helped a physical person, because 99% of the people I never meet. So I don't work with physical people, I work with force fields. I know that sounds a little bit difficult to understand, but if you will, I'm working with the spirit of a person. I'm not working with their physical soma. I never work with people in person. I work with their force field, or what some people might call their spirit body or their aura.
So it is possible to manipulate people using their energy fields completely oblivious and unknown to them.
Yes.
So you
Yes,
could
it
be
is.
walking around, and I know that because it was done to me.
Yes.
So you could be walking around doing your life, and someone could be messing with you. And
Yes.
until you start experiencing the physical manifestations
Right.
of what that person is doing, you are clueless.
You're right, because the non-physical dimension has no boundaries. As I mentioned, I'm working with people in India, and these people are from a HIV clinic in India. And most of those people have never seen my instrument. Most of those people sent me their photograph in good faith. And I'm working again halfway around the world with people in India. And whether they understand the process or not, I am accessing their spirit body. I am accessing their non-physical dimension. And again, most of the people obviously are familiar with my work, and that's why they send me a photograph. I only accept photographs if people are willing. But for instance, I work with people who have pets, and obviously a dog and a cat does not understand scalar energy, and they don't realize that they've submitted their photograph to me. But so to use the example of a dog, a cat, a horse, those, I am accessing that quantum dimension of a dog, a cat, a horse, and that animal has no idea what I'm doing.
So there are a lot of people who believe that is craziness, but I know with absolute certainty, all a person needs is your picture. Right. And they can make you better, or they can harm you you can even kill people doing this.
Yes, so, you're right. It's not a toy.
No,
it's not a toy. This is very real.
Yes, it's not craziness, because some people that you would never expect know this, and they use it to hurt people. But I'm grateful that you are using it to heal people. So Tom, have you gotten reports from that clinic to show you how you are healing people, and how are they able to attribute their healing to what you are doing?
Okay. I have received many reports from this HIV clinic in Delhi, India, and people say they are feeling better. And many of those people have gone on to get test results, and the test results show that HIV doesn't exist. Okay, that HIV has been eradicated from their body. But I cannot approve that Western model, that Western definition of medicine to my groundbreaking research that is non-physical. The two really just can't prove or disprove one another, because they're two different branches of science. One's an apple and one's an orange, so to speak. And you cannot prove the physical dimension with the non-physical dimension. You cannot prove or disprove scalar energy with electromagnetic energy, because they're two divergent philosophies. They're two different thoughts. And each philosophy, each dimension has its own rules and laws and paradigms. So there is never going to be a sufficient way of proving my work, with the exception that perhaps people feel better, but that always calls into mind autosuggestion or their feelings. So right now, with this new science, scalar energy, there really is no way to prove what I'm doing by way of electromagnetic observation, because the electromagnetic observation, that interpretation of electricity and magnetism, is not the same observation of scalar energy. The two are different. So you can't prove the apple exists by way of the fact that the orange exists. The apple and the orange are two distinct entities.
So we know that there's no cure for AIDS currently, right? So
Right.
I would imagine one of the ways that you can ascertain that your work, your light is changing people's lives is if someone in a photograph that you are treating daily has
Yes.
been tested and there's no more AIDS. Then
Yeah.
how can you argue with, how can you refute that?
Right, right.
Can you?
Well, that would be considered still anecdotal, and I'll tell you why. Because according to Western thinking, and in this case, Western medicine, there's no acceptable explanation as to why a photograph could actually connect first and foremost to a person and then effectuate a change in that person. So I know many people tried to prove or disprove my work through electricity and magnetism. You can't do it. It's a different language. It's a different way of looking at reality. So it's two different divergent thoughts. They're two different philosophies. They're two different dimensions. One dimension cannot prove or disprove the other dimension. The only way you could prove electricity is by studying electromagnetic theory. The only way you can prove scalar energy is by studying scalar energy theory. The two are different, and
No.
you can't use the two to compare and to prove one another. It won't work.
But you can prove electricity because although you don't understand the dynamics of it, when you flip the switch, light comes on.
Yes, and
So
it can be
there's
measured.
electricity, right? You can
Yes,
measure.
and it can be measured. But scalar is not electricity. It's a different type of energy. So the electromagnetic theory can prove electricity, but electromagnetic theory cannot prove scalar energy, and vice versa. Scalar energy theory cannot prove electricity. The two are different.
Right, I agree with you, but what I'm asking you is if there's a clinic of 100 people, 100 people being tested for HIV, right? And they're being treated constantly. And suddenly you were sent that photograph with each of those 100 people in it, and you start treating them, right? And the only difference is you started treating them. And
Right.
not the drugs they're taking, because they've been taking that.
Right.
And they're just being controlled and they've been told they cannot be cured.
Right.
But then you are treating them. And then
Right.
they're all testing negative. Then
Right.
isn't that evidence? That's what I'm asking you.
Yes, I would say that's evidence, but it cannot be proven or disproven. So I will be bold and say this. When I work with people with my instrument only by way of a photograph, remember, I work with people around the world by way of a photograph. Okay, this is my photograph. Okay. When I work with people around the world with their photograph, I am able, at least on the photograph in my dimension, to break apart the herpes virus, the HIV virus, even COVID-19. But I observe that on the photograph. Now, I cannot account for how they respond as an individual because they're at a distance. If they have a favorable response, they'll write me a testimony. They might send me a diagnostic test, but there's no way conclusively that I could say, because I've never been able to measure it. There's no way I can say conclusively that my work with a photograph has helped that person overcome a disease. I let the people report that. And many people do report that. Remember, the person, if they feel better, that really is the litmus test as far as I'm concerned. I could talk until I'm blue in the face. Visit my website and there's thousands of testimonies. And those people attest to the fact that after they sent me their photograph, for some reason they feel better. And some of them go as far to say that their viruses have been eradicated from their body. But keep in mind, I never met that person. That person has never been in my laboratory. I had no direct contact with that person.
And how often do you treat those photographs before that person will get the outcome that you're treating them for?
Usually it only takes one day, one session. because scalar energy is a fundamental force and it obeys the laws of nature. And if you instruct a scalar energy instrument to balance the 7 meridians, it will do that instantaneously. If you tell a scalar energy instrument to find the herpes virus on a virus, it will do that, and it will destroy the herpes virus immediately, instantly.
Well, Tom, I think it's very difficult for people to believe this because number one, it is a new way of thinking and treating people. We just ran out of time. And the second thing is people always want evidence, especially when you're telling them something that's foreign, something that's new, something that they can't understand because there's no evidence to support it, or none of the formulas that exist in the world isn't resonating with them because it doesn't apply in this situation. So basically it's a lot of trust, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Well, I tell you what, I believe you because I was awakened to the fact that energy can manipulate your life. Because years ago, I was told some things were done to me in that energetic or in that world, in the spiritual realm. And I thought, what kind of craziness is that? And then over the years, things started happening in my life that could not be explained. And upon investigation, I found out that jealous, envious people have been manipulating dark forces that started to physically affect my life. I started seeing crazy things happening that couldn't be explained. And then when I contacted people who are trained and work in with this type of information, I found out very personal things that had happened to me through them. So people, listen to Tom. There's another world in existence, our physical world, that is affecting us in our physical world. So keep an open mind. And what have you got to lose, right, Tom? What have they got to lose if they try scalar light?
Yeah, I said the only thing you have to lose is your germs. That's the way I look at it. It's a new way of looking at reality. It's not electricity. It's not magnetism. It's different. I'm at the vanguard of this new and emerging science. I have a website, scalarlight.com. If you're inclined, visit the website, email us your photographs. We'll treat you for free for 15 days. Let's see how you feel. It's up to you.
Well, Tom, once again, I really enjoyed this time with you. I think that we're living in a world of so many different things happening now that when it's someone offering something to help you to be a better version of yourself and a healthier version of yourself, why not? Because you're offering it for free. Yeah. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Jennylyn.
Thank you for watching Conversations with Jennylyn. When I try to bring only conversations that will inspire you and make your life better. And thank you for continuing to watch me, and I will see you next time. Thank you. Hold on, Tom.
Broadcasting from Silicon Valley, California, this is Conversations with Jennylyn.
Watching Conversations with Jennylyn, formerly known as The Jennylyn Show. And as always, I bring you fascinating people with fascinating stories. At least I try to, and I have in the past, and today is no exception. My guest, Brandon Watkins, is a Stanford University Children's Hospital employee who has just done something phenomenal for the hospital. And I can't wait for him to tell you about it. Brandon?
Nice to meet you, Jennylyn. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing this wonderful endeavor.